Jon Kelly, thanks for being my guinea pig here for my first live stream of the Decision Room. And for those who don't know, Jon is CEO of Modern Metric and a serial entrepreneur who's helping reshape how the insurance industry engages with personal lines clients using modern tech, clean UI, and practical automation. Jon's been at the forefront, of the insurtech space, including previously building and exiting Kelly Clee. Today, we dig into his leadership journey and where he's headed next. Welcome, Jon.
Thank you, Josh. Good to be on with you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks again for taking the leap with me on this first live stream. And I've had the good fortune to know you for a while, had you on podcast previously and seen you building these businesses, but maybe you can just start by talking about Modern Metric a bit and
Sure.
What gap in the market you're solving and how did you have the idea to bring this together?
Yeah, no, for sure. So we actually, I'll tell you, it's kind of a long and winding road of how we got here, and I'll give the brief overview of it. So, I'm going to actually start after I sold my last company, which was called SureHits in 2008. And in maybe kind of a funny insurance nerd story, way back in the beginning of my career in the 90s, I had done a lot of work for a company called Fireman's Fund, which at the time, Fireman's Fund and Chubb essentially had a duopoly on high net worth private client insurance. And so when I sold my company in 2008, one of my first thoughts was, I'm going to actually try to get a Chubb or a Fireman's Fund policy. And I called a bunch of brokers in Denver. And what struck me, I actually found a great broker. She was amazing, super talented, super knowledgeable. But I was kind of blown away by how, for lack of a better word, haphazard the onboarding process was. It was, 500 questions parsed out over multiple weeks of, I called it the Columbo because it was always just one more thing, right? Oh, your house is in a trust. Just one more question. And I just thought it kind of set it down as a strange experience or a not great experience. And then I just couldn't help think that, maybe there were some issues with technology in personal lines, especially at the high end. And so fast forward to 2016, we ended up building an agency. And we ended up building an agency. It was only private client, only high net worth. And one of the theses of that was that there was some big open holes in the technology stack for private client and personal lines insurance. And all these agencies and huge brokers, they have agency management systems, which are kind of mostly back office accounting systems, right? So they can pay their producers and keep track of how much they should be paid. And then some of them use CRMs like Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics, but there isn't really any software in the space that is the system where you actually interact with your clients, right? How do you actually interact with your clients? How do you do a data review with them? How do you take that to market? And then how do you deliver a beautiful proposal to them? Didn't exist, doesn't exist, actually.
Is that, and just so I understand, are you speaking specifically to sort of that private client space, or are you speaking in general?
Speaking in general, for any personal lines that's done in the independent agency side or the independent broker side, the captives, State Farm, Allstate, Farmers, folks like that, they actually have really good technology from what I've seen, and partly because those are direct writers, right? They're done through local agents, but they're direct writers. And so State Farm and Allstate and Farmers have invested in the technology so that their agents can deliver a really high quality experience. Kind of ironically, especially since the independent agents are often working with much, either mass affluent or private client high net worth, that just those investments hadn't really been made in that space. And so, like I said, they're kind of, it's, the AMS, agency management system, to do the back office, a CRM like Salesforce to just kind of keep track of leads. But that whole process of how do you get the data in, how do you take that to market, how do you do your proposal, that's all done in paper and pencil and through Microsoft 365, through Excel and Word and Outlook.
Got it. And so, I mean, so theoretically, your technology could apply anywhere in that segment of the industry. I mean, are you open to selling to anyone, or are you focusing, more on sort of, relationship-based business that's higher end, or how are you focused in terms of your distribution strategy?
Yeah, Josh, it's a great question. So the way that we've, and just kind of, a lot of times these things kind of happen organically. At Kelly Clee, we only did private client. But what we've kind of seen now that we've been out in market is that the real split is between what we call relationship business, multi-line business, and transactional business, which is monoline business. And so really that's kind of the split that we're seeing in the marketplace. There's actually a lot of technology that exists for that monoline business. There's a bunch of what we call the form builders out there that they're basically just pipes into an AMS. They're all integrated AMSs and stuff. And so those things are really good for monoline business. They get really, really clunky real fast if you're trying to do something complex. But anything from Main Street to mass affluent to high net worth, we see a lot of all three of those categories. But typically the stuff that we're seeing is multi-line. So even auto and home all the way up to, art collections and jets and things like that. We see that whole gamut on our platform now.
Got it. And so did you develop something that is sort of, really about just the user experience and sort of the last mile of how the agent interacts with the customer and connecting in the CRM and the AMS and just basically sort of providing a more user-friendly front end to that? Or are you bringing other elements into the technology solution that sort of aren't covered between those pieces?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we think of it, there's basically two things, and we have two things that we're bringing to the table for independent agents and brokers. And we really think of them as these are the two things. The first one, first and foremost, is a better experience for them and for their clients. Delivering a wow experience from the first touch and that whole data discovery process all the way through to a amazing proposal. That's our number one goal. And that's what we're trying to deliver. And I think that's really what sets us apart, because just by the evidence of what's out there, there's nothing else that, that is built for that. The second is efficiency. And there's plenty of room for that as well in the industry. And so we think first and foremost of how should it, not just how should it look. It's not just, it looks great, but it's about how does it work? How do you deliver this like blow you away experience for clients? And then on the efficiency side, we have a actually, I'm going to show you, I have a prop, the no rekeying button. So, that our industry is beset with rekeying. And, our secondary goal is to eliminate as many keystrokes as we possibly can. But I think one of the big issues that's happened is there is a ton of technology development. There's a bunch of these form builders, like I said, that are out there, and all they talk about and all they think about is how do I efficiently get data from the AMS to the system to the carriers? And fine, I mean, that's 10% of what our platform is, and it's amazing, it's great. But there's so much more. There's such a need to have something that really allows you to deliver a great client experience. And I feel like that's where we kind of sit alone in the space.
Got it. So I don't know much about your revenue model, but is this something that you mentioned the captive agencies? Is this something that's more oriented toward like the large independent agencies, or is it trying to help some of the smaller guys level up, or what's your target market?
Yeah, our target market is the largest the largest personal lines brokers, national brokers. It really shines there because, among other things, like we can set up offices and do all those things, and so there's just a lot more value delivered there the bigger they are. And one of our first kind of our anchor tenant is a top 20 national broker, and they've been with us since the beginning, and we run their retail program on our platform, their wholesale program. We've got a couple others that are coming on board here very shortly. That said, we were a small agency in the grand scheme of things, and I actually sit on the board of a company that does marketing for small agencies and lead gen, and so I kind of have a big place in my heart for that. So we don't, anybody who wants to use it, it's great, but we don't really go out and we don't really go out there to look for smaller agencies, but we kind of love them. Part of the reason is some of the best feedback we get actually is the smaller agencies. Just, they're in the game, and and they want to, really want to blow away their customers, which is kind of our whole thing. So kind of like that too, just because we have one who's the founder is real tech forward, and he just gives us awesome feedback. So kind of love that too.
So what's it been like, making the transition from running an agency to, developing and selling tech to brokers and agencies? And second part of that question is, have you had to kind of, modify your leadership style in any way to make that transition?
Be careful what I said. I actually accidentally answered this question without prompting earlier today, which is, it's been amazing, right? You're in the business, that like this is. So I've actually been in insurance and mostly in personal lines since the mid '90s, and at least in the last 30 years, this is the hardest market. The cat risk stuff is just out of control. From California to Nevada to, the entire Rocky Mountain region. So it's really tough for the agents and brokers right now, especially in the higher end where a lot of the wildfire risk is. So it's been, I hate to say it, but it's actually been it's been a little bit of a break to get away from that and that side.
You have your own problems growing a business, but
yes,
happy to get away from those a little bit.
Yeah, so I think that I love the question about the leadership style, and I've got actually the two co-founders of the business we're also in the leadership team with Kelly Klee on the technology side. I think the biggest difference is a change in it's a change in the success metrics and making sure that you're making progress when. So just to be clear, so I don't go off into something that everyone's wondering what the heck I'm talking about, is that when you're an agency, you have this daily drumbeat of how many clients did I add today? What was my conversion rate from an inbound lead to adding a client? Did I lose any clients today? Did I have any upset clients today? Did I have upset underwriters today? You have this really steady up drumbeat where you can say, gosh, I hope, I'm going to make sure today was better than yesterday. And the day after that is better still. On this side, it's not like this, especially we're managing giant, we have over 3,000 users on the platform. We have, these huge customers that we're working with already and that we're selling to. So it's a very, very long sales cycle. And then it is, knock wood, we've never lost a client. So it isn't, somebody calling to cancel their insurance policy or getting non-renewed. It's a, hey, there's something I'm trying to do in the platform that I can't do or I'd like to do, or the AI is acting up or whatever it is, things like that. So it's really just managing a different feedback cycle of what you're getting from your clients and prospects. Versus that kind of constant drumbeat that you have an agency owner.
So sometimes people are well suited to one or the other, right? They have the patience for the long cycle. They like the strategy. They like, really understanding who's the real economic buyer, who are the influencers, who are the
Right.
people who are trying to throw their hand up, and versus the ones who like just like hammering a lot of quick wins. Not that selling insurance isn't competitive and
Yeah.
has its nuances in order to be a really top quality producer, but are you someone able to do both, or has that been a transition? And then
I like,
second
I,
part.
I like, I think, I would say,
Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead. Go ahead. I
I
got a
like
second part to that question,
yeah,
but I'll let you answer that first.
I'll answer that one first. I think I'm better suited for this model. And, I had a partner in Kelly Klee, and he was kind of more focused on some of the day-to-day side of the agency and all that. Yeah, I think I like the long cycle, and I like the idea of, I don't know, I feel like I'm more suited to it, of prioritizing, the product, making sure that we're staying in front of prospects and our clients and all that. And I don't know. Maybe it's just I always like what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
But people ask me in Aspen, like, what's the best season? I'm like, I don't know, right now.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. That's maybe just kind of my perspective on things.
So, do you look for a different type of team member in this organization than you looked for in Kelly Klee or some of your previous businesses, or is there
That's
a
a
common
great
thread
question.
in the DNA you're looking for?
I don't know. That's a great question. I haven't thought a lot. I guess my initial reaction is no. The businesses that I've always run, from, e-coverage, we were the first startup to underwrite car insurance online in the US, up to Sure Hits to now. I've always wanted to have people that have on my team that have very high agency. That's always been the big thing for me, is like high agency, driven, wanting to build stuff, with me, and taking their job seriously, taking, really seeing themselves as having an obligation to the client first and foremost, their teammates. So I think that's always been the through line, and always what I've looked for.
Cool. And are there ways you kind of test for that, or have you,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So when I do interviews, my big thing is, I'll go through someone's resume, and one of the things I actually like to do, even in screening now, I've kind of pushed some of this into the screening process, is to just ask a few like open-ended questions that are around, like, how do you think about things? But what I'll often do is I'll go through and then ask questions. And again, if you ever are hiring me, go ahead and watch this. I'll give you the keys to the kingdom here. It's asking questions to understand the motivations of, when they were working somewhere, what were they trying to do? Like, why were they there? Like, what was going on? Like, what were you thinking when you're there? And I don't know, I feel like I can answer that question about any of the places I like. Well, put yourself in that mind space and tell me about it. Tell me what's going on. And I'll tell you this is my favorite one ever. This is a long time ago. So I think I can say that 5 companies ago, way back when, I was interviewing somebody for a pretty low level junior position. And I was going through, and they'd worked at a natural history museum. I'm thinking to myself, wow. You think of like Night at the Museum and things like, like, what a fascinating place to work, right? And so one of the questions I asked was, tell me about the Natural History Museum. Like, what was your favorite exhibit? What you like? Like, tell me about it. Like, what was it like working there? Did you get to like hang out there after? And, how did this all go? And the reaction was, that was okay. It's like,
no passion, no.
Yeah. And like, of all things, like a place where like most people would be, it's like a place that is kind of something for everybody, right? In a natural history museum. And so anyway, that's always what I think of when I tell that story. It's like, Yeah, if you're somewhere for any amount of time, there should be something. There's always jobs that don't work out, and I totally get that. But I don't know. You should always have something about what was going on, what you're thinking, what you're trying to achieve there.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. So, um, I guess one of the questions that I had here is there a particular kind of leadership decision you made at Modern Metric that has influenced the business in some particular way? Or it could be Kelly Klee if there's another example you'd rather use, but
Yeah.
I'm just curious around that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing that pops to mind again, maybe because you asked it before. So, the biggest thing was really focusing on large enterprise clients versus focusing on trying to pick up 1,000 small agents.
Yeah.
And I think I'll make a little bit of an analogy here. So one of the things that we talk a lot about in our business is, we built the business originally for private client. And when you're building we built the software. So when you're building a user interface for private client, the first thing that comes to mind is these are complex accounts, right? Multiple homes, multiple cars, valuable articles and collections, jewelry, art, umbrella, all these things, often a lot of people associated with the accounts, not just in the family, but you also have, the extended family. Sometimes you're insuring the nephew, niece,
Right.
financial advisor, your personal assistant, all these things. And so we built the interface for it and just the whole experience around this idea of no matter how complex somebody's account is, you should be able to just look at it and just see it and know where everything is. And you're not digging around and looking for, folder somewhere and looking for file, all these things. Right. And so if you do that, then when somebody just has 2 cars in a house or anything, then it's even simpler, right? Like I always joke about it and say,
yeah.
If you order an Uber X and the Uber Black comes, you're thrilled. If you order Uber Black because you have some VIP that you're taking care of and the old Honda you're not happy, right?
Yeah.
And so it really does, but you can't go from one to the other. If you built a lead gen form for personal auto and now you want to say, oh, I want a bundle, you're never going to go from that all the way up to mass affluent even. And so it's kind of similar, I think, with the enterprise side. Is I think we're the only ones that are kind of even adjacent to us in the space who really from the get-go said we're going to be serving the largest 20 insurance brokers in America, and we're going to dominate that space because it will just deliver a far away best solution for it. And so it really changed the way that we built the entire product from the get-go, and so we can still deliver for a one-man shop. And like I said, I kind of love doing that because we get other insights from it, but you really can't go the other way. It's really, really, really hard to go the other way. And just, there's a million little decisions that get made that are really difficult to walk back once you built a platform.
So it sounds like, in your businesses, you've had co-founders where you've been able to divide and conquer and
always
good partnership, sort of good partnering skills together. Any advice you'd give another founder who's, thinking about getting something off the ground and how to pick co-founders and where to start?
Yeah, for sure. So I'd say the first and foremost is, and at the risk of repeating myself once again in the process, it's the same kinds of questions, which are, what is it like? What do you want? Right? We all, sometimes the questions in interviews about, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years and things like that are throwaway questions. Yeah. And whatever, if you're hiring somebody to be your bookkeeper, then fine, whatever. Yeah. But when you're thinking about co-founding a company with someone, the closest analogy, and again, this is not original to me, of course, is getting married. And you hope that it's going to be I hope this is it, right? And at least when I walked into something, and this has been true for everything, people always ask me, you've sold a bunch of companies. Are you like, how long are you going to hold on to this one? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Every single time I thought forever, and then circumstances changed and all that. And so that's not everybody. And you don't have to do that. But I kind of want people on my team that if you ask Chad and Jacob, how long do you want to do this? I think, I don't know, you bring them on and ask them, I think they would say, I don't know, as long as we can, right? And so they're compatible with me on that. And I think there's a bunch of other similar things that you can look at and say, hey, are you all about serving your clients and win-win relationships and all these things? Are you trying to do something where you're building an honest business that's built to last, all these things? If that's true, you need to find other people that share those values as well. So it's like I said, kind of in like a marriage type situation of, are you finding people that share your values, share your goals, share your vision for something? I think those are by far the most important things, because as far as the skills and the skill sets and that sort of thing, and then obviously if you're super driven, finding somebody who's super driven, right? Because it'll drive you crazy. If they're playing golf and it's 9 o'clock at night, I can tell you, Chad and Jacob, the number of times that I've sent, chats, Google chats at 4:50 in the morning and gotten 2 immediate replies. So it's like making sure too that you have the same level of commitment to the business is huge. And those things are super important, way more important than, well, gosh, what do I have somebody who has the perfect complementary skill set and that sort of thing? Especially when you're starting a business, you kind of all have to do everything. And somebody's got to be good at sales, and somebody's got to be good at really, really locked down on tech. But everything else you can kind of figure out.
Fill in the gaps. So one last question here. So flipping it around, whether it's your co-founders or members of the team or even your customers, what would you want them to say about you?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say the number one thing would be that I'd like them to say that I delivered, that whatever I said I was going to do, I did, and that they got value out of it. That's what they feel like they got it. They got a good deal, that they got good value out of it. And more than anything, it's that they feel like I honestly that I honestly represented what we could do, and that they feel like they can trust me. I think is number one.
I think trust is probably got to be number one above all, I would think. More than most anything. So Jon, thanks again for joining and being my guinea pig here. Anything else you'd like to share, either about Modern Metric or just in general before we wrap up?
You want to hear something funny?
Sure.
So just on kind of a whim, we were Jacob and Chad and I were talking literally last week, and kind of on a whim, we thought it's a long story, but on the platform we have a wholesale program, and there's a bunch of people that don't have websites and stuff. And I'm like, oh, we should build them. We should make something where they can have like a quick and dirty website. So we built one. We built one and launched it in like a week. So it's called Turnkey. So it's pretty funny. So we sell the enterprise, we sell enterprise software and $50 a month turnkey websites. So we'll see how it goes. But so anyway, if you know somebody who's
I think that, it comes through in just talking to you, but it's obviously you have a passion for this. And I know you were joking about, being happy you're not dealing with someone who had a house in the Palisades or whatever right now. But it's clear you got a passion for the business, and you're kind of wonky about it. And so, you do that kind of stuff when you're into it.
I like to build things. I like to solve people's problems. That's what it comes down to.
All right, great. Well, Jon Kelly, CEO of Modern Metric, thanks so much for joining the Decision Room.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks for having me on.
2, 1. All right.